I'm Devin. I'm a current high school senior at PV, and I'm involved in a various extracurricular campuses on campus with like National Honor Society and Class of 2021 leadership. And then
Yeah.
I'll hand
Yeah.
it over to my
Hi.
partner.
Hi. I'm Anita. I'm also a senior at Pinole Valley High School. Also work with Spartan Inc. writing just articles. Also take part in a lot of extracurricular at school. And yeah, I'm just here to interview you and just talk. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for interview. I mean, first of all, thank you for this interview, but also thank you for reaching out. It really is incredible to see young folks at the forefront of journalism, particularly with a huge attack on journalist rights and just like attacks on
mhm.
media. It's really important locally that we have that type of media. And at this point, you probably all are the largest Pinole media forum that we have, which is a big deal. And you should take that I mean, that's a really high honor. That's really important. So thanks for letting me be here.
No
Yeah.
problem.
So I guess I'll start with some questions that we previously emailed to you.
Yeah.
Um, how did you find your way to running for city council, specifically in Pinole?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. As y'all know, my name is Devin Murphy. My pronouns, I use he, him, and his.
Mhm.
I'm focused a lot. So, first of all, I'm 27 years old. Currently am a small business owner. I lead a business that helps small businesses and companies grow with digital marketing strategies and communications. I also happen to own a vending machine company, which is pretty fun. And a lot of people are like, oh, cool. So I always mention that. But my day to day is mostly as a digital strategist and communications strategist. So I bring that perspective first and foremost to a lot of what I do. I went to UCLA and graduated with a diploma in African American Studies and minored in public policy. And after attending UCLA, I came back to the Bay Area, as opposed to a lot of my friends who stayed in Los Angeles, which is totally fine. But I was from the Bay Area, so I wanted to come back home. And I came back and I came to Pinole. What do I know about Pinole? Well, my father moved to Pinole. My family moved into Pinole in 1996. We were one of the first African American families on our block. You know, I'm from San Francisco, Baby Hunters Point, around the corner from the old Candlestick Park, if you remember. And I grew up in San Francisco and was raised. The only city outside of San Francisco I lived in was the city of Vacaville, where I went to high school in. And what did I know about Pinole? Not much, actually. What I did know was that, I moved here when I was 3, and I didn't know that at 3, but I knew that because 3 years later, my family, my mother and my father divorced. And at that stage, we had moved back to San Francisco, and I would come to Pinole on the weekends in the summers. And I oftentimes would go to Meadow Park, which is right up the street in Nob Hill neighborhood where I live, and did not always um, feel feel like I belonged here. It wasn't that it was anyone else. It was just like it's hard to think of yourself as belonging somewhere because of the fact that you don't look like anybody here. But as I slowly aged, right, I saw Pinole changing. Typically, young people, right, from Pinole changing. It wasn't the traditional. It looked like people like us, frankly, on this call,
Mhm.
and that was exciting. And so after graduating, I decided, and of course, being here in the summers and the weekends, I knew that it was changing, but didn't know where I was going to settle after graduation. And so I came back here to Pinole after graduation and decided that this was going to be home for myself. I spent a year in DC just because I wanted to see if I wanted to something else, but I came right back. But to answer your question, Devin, I found my way to run for city council for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I've been doing work around communications and local governance for a long time. I've supported candidates who run for elected office. I've, passed a number of legislative bills at, the state and local levels. And I also serve on the planning commission here. And that's a big kind of like area of learning about land use policy, environmental policy, development, local development, economic development. And I decided that we currently didn't necessarily have the representation in Pinole that I think we deserve. And I thought that there was a lot of representation that needed to be at that council table that was not. And I heard a lot of conversations at the council table that I kind of bit my tongue, bite my lip, like, I don't think this is the right way to go, or I don't think these are the right things to say to make people feel welcome and warm. And so I decided to run, and now I'm running for city council.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Because I live in Pinole too, and I can attest to the fact that you sometimes you don't really feel welcome because there isn't really a lot of people who look like you.
Yeah.
So like I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about like your time at UCLA. How did that like affect the path that you took? Because you said you studied African American, what is it called? I forgot. African American, I forgot the rest of it.
Studies.
Yeah, African American studies and public policy. So how did that affect you?
Yeah, so I actually study African American studies and political science, and then minored in public policy. And that truly did impact me in so many ways. Number one, it allowed me to have a network of other students, but also professors who were actively engaged in challenging and transforming systems of power. What does that mean? So that means that there are fundamentally, power is the ability to make someone do something they otherwise wouldn't do. Traditionally, these are, what we see in the United States. We see these as people, with a lot of money, corporations, people with a lot of political power in terms of voting, right? People who are Supreme Court justices, people who are teachers, right? Our parents have power, right? And so first and foremost, it allowed me to understand the definition of power, and more importantly for me, those who don't have power, and how we share power, how we distribute out power, both economic, social, environmental, and of course political power. And UCLA, my ability to graduate from UCLA and just experience like my own self there, was transformative in that way. I, was involved in a lot of different organizations, including the Black Student Union, which is called the African Student Union there. I'm happy to explain that if that needs explaining. I was involved in Bruin Democrats, which is like the Democratic Club of UCLA, the largest college-based Democratic club in, I believe, the country, but it may be the state. Don't quote me on that. I, inevitably actually was pushed by a bunch of community or campus organizations to run for student body president. And I was soon elected to be the student body president at UCLA, the first openly gay and Black student body president. And so it was a tremendous, real learning experience. I mean, I spent 5 years at UCLA. So it was like, there was every moment, every waking moment, I feel like I took advantage of. I mean, I was involved in rally committee and the fun stuff. I went to parties and, don't tell this, but, I did all that good stuff, but I also was able to really grow and learn, and become more self-aware. Become more self-aware of what my likes were, my passions were, the things I was good at, the things I wasn't good at, the people. I was aware of more people. And growing up in San Francisco, I was always exposed to different cultures. Exposure doesn't mean tolerance. Exposure doesn't mean understanding, right? There's one thing to walk down the street and see somebody who may identify as a different race as you or a gender, but to understand the deep, deep levels of experiences that person has, you have to have a real commitment to that, and you also have to have a space where that is embraced. And so UCLA allowed me to get that and bring that back into the real world, because as you can see, we don't have that everywhere, right? I mean, I would say that Pinole is more on the spectrum of having that than not, right? But we can also do better in Pinole to walk down the street and actually feel like we're embracing the diversity of our town. Pinole is one of the most diverse cities in the state of California. We are very lucky to live here, go to school here, and work here. Now it's time for us to take that to the next level and embrace those differences, because those differences are opportunities for growth.
So UCLA was like a big contribution to who you are today as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was huge, right? I mean, when I think about running for office again, I always make the joke that when I was running for a UCLA president, I was running to hopefully empower 28,000 students to vote, 28,000 undergraduate students. Well, you look at the population of Pinole, and we go to 20,000 people, right? And so Pinole is actually smaller in terms of population than UCLA was. So my hope is that that is not like, oh, a bad thing. That is actually an opportunity to say, look at what this college campus is doing. Imagine what we can do in Pinole with 20,000 people who are homeowners and students like yourselves and people of color and LGBT people and seniors, right? We have a huge opportunity to look at that diversity and see it as growth and pivot forward for all of us.
Yeah, and then go ahead, Anita.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask the next question.
Sure.
So, what do you feel like sets you apart from the other candidates?
Oh, first of all, there's two candidates running for two open seats. So let me start there by saying that most likely I will be on the council, God willing. Pray for us, pray for the whole country, hopefully, or cross your fingers or send good vibes next Tuesday. Whatever suits your needs. But I will say there are a bunch of things that separate me from the other candidate. And I think she's a wonderful woman. And if you don't know Maureen Toms, you should certainly look her up. She's been in Pinole for a long time, and she also was appointed to the council and served on the council for a while. So that I think this is her first time running and winning for election. I think there's two things that specifically, separate me. Number one, it is my age. I'm 27 years old. If elected with the most votes, I will be the youngest mayor in Pinole's history. I will also be the first LGBT mayor in Pinole's history. I will also be the first Black mayor in Pinole's history. And so that in itself is trajectory in terms of where we have come from and where Pinole can go. But just to touch back on my age is that I am running with the tagline, a new generation of leadership for a better Pinole. And what does that mean to me? That means that you, Anita, and you, Devin, are part of that. That is a movement. That is not just Devin Murphy. That is every Devin, and that is every Anita. But that is an opportunity for us to say, this city, this town cannot be great without the young people who live in it. This city, this town cannot be excellent without centering the voices of the people who are going to be the future family and the future homeowners and the future seniors of our town. It is a dismissive act if we do not center young people in our town and what the future of our town. And thus far, I don't think we have done that. Thus far, I think we've really lacked the ability, and our city has lacked the ability to really reach out to young people the way I know when I was young, when I was 16, doing kind of a lot of the same work you both have been doing, really wanted to be reached out to. You all are strategic thinkers. You know how to send an email. You know how to communicate with city council candidates at this point, right? You are a lobby and you should be seen as such. And we are a lobby. We are young people. We have a lot to say and a lot to give, and a lot of authority and privilege and responsibility should be in that. And so my tagline and my age difference allows me to understand uniquely the differences between, what some of our, senior folks in the community are dealing with and the issues they're dealing with, but also some of the things that our young people are dealing with and building that bridge, because they're not that different, to be clear. We all really do want this. We want to feel safe, right? We want our city to prosper. We want parks to be clean and grow. We want fire safety, right? We don't want our houses to burn down in the middle of wildfires. We want diversity. Well, some of us want diversity, some of us don't, but a lot of us do. A lot of us like this. A lot of us like the differences. We may be a little, hey, Devin, you're a little different than me, right? Your last name is spelled different than mine, but I want to know more about you, right? Anita, you said you live in Pinole. You may live in a different town of Pinole, part of Pinole, but I want to learn where you live, right? And how our communities are different and how they're similar. And so my age difference is not just about being 27, it's about the generation in which we come from. We are on the front lines of fighting these fights on the climate crisis, on criminal justice reform, on envisioning sustainable cities and resilient cities. And because of it, that sets me apart, I believe, from the rest of the pack. I will also say that my levels of communication sets me apart. Again, I am a strategist. I own my own business. I'm a small business owner. I'm the only candidate on the ballot running for city council who's a small business owner. I happen to be a millennial entrepreneur, which is like, what are you doing, Devin? Why aren't you going to work for a tech firm and getting a lot of money? That's not what I want to do. I want to be a small business owner. That sets me apart because that also says that I'm embracing the city in which I live in, and I want to grow my businesses right here in Pinole. And I want to do that by centering our communities to work at my businesses so that we can all grow. And those two things I think really, really do set me apart from the rest of the pack. I'm just going to say this last one thing just to say, the last piece I would say is that I do have a very, very unique experience coming into this work as a community organizer, which I think is very important right now in local government. It is very easy to, I wouldn't say easy, it is easy to run for office for yourself. It is a lot harder to run for office with communities backing you up and saying, this is what we want. This is the power we want you to transform. This is what we want you to bring to the table. And we want to hold you accountable to doing that. And I think what sets me apart is my history and my last decade of community organizing, both in electoral politics, but issues such as criminal justice reform, environmental justice, voting rights. I have a lot of experience and have national organizations that have endorsed me because of it, in terms of really grassroots organizing in my own communities. Here in the Bay Area, when I lived in Los Angeles, I did work in Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles. I went to DC and did some work there, but also I've supported a number of young, talented activists and organizers across the nation who are working at the front lines of this work.
It's amazing. Like you as a community organizer, I can relate to that, or we can relate to that, as we've previously run for our student council or student body, and we have to have those same ideals in order to like get people or students to vote, even though it's not like a real election.
No, it's real. Oh, it is a real election, though. It is, and we have to stop saying that like our campus elections and our school elections are not real. They're number one stomping grounds for what people consider real elections, but they also are. Every election is about building the transforming power. And when you're able to get people, because I was ASB president at Buckingham, and I was like, it was like the least spirited school, and I was just like, we need spirit. Come on, guys. But I just think back about how much that struggle was for me of like getting people energized, getting people engaged. And then I remember that in 2016, there were that we talked about Democrats and Republicans, but there were over 40% of the general population of the United States who didn't vote. Those are all the people in high school, and no, not to bash the folks in high school, but those are all the people in high school who are like, I don't want to vote. I don't want to be spirited. I don't want to go to the games. I don't want, I'm not blaming them. I'm saying that they need to be inspired. And you, Anita, and you, Devin, running for office inspire somebody. I'm not saying everybody, but you doing that is a part of running for office. And it's really, really important. I'm not just saying that because I'm running for city council. I'm saying that because I remember feeling like that and thinking 10 years later now, oh, that was really important for my understanding of local governance. That was the start of it, Yeah. I'm glad you're doing that. I'm really glad. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you all win? Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. Or how did they go?
Yeah, we won.
So we did win.
Yeah,
I guess you did.
He's president. I'm vice president. So
of PVSHS.
Yes.
Yeah.
The school?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible! Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh
so
my
much.
gosh, you acted so humble about it. I'm like, okay, that's huge. Congratulations.
Yeah, so thank you. So you talked a little bit about like what your goals are if you do become become part of Pinole City Council. So like, can you go a little bit more in depth into that? Like, what do you envision for Pinole in the future?
Oh, absolutely. So the first and foremost thing that I really envision is building a roadmap. Well, there's three things. Let me start there. There's going to be three things that are my main pillars of both my candidacy and hopefully as a council member. The first is building a roadmap to COVID-19 recovery. So you all know this is a very strange, unprecedented time. We've had pandemics, but not something that we've dealt with in our generation. And it has hurt a lot of people in so many ways that we still have not all calculated yet because we're still in it. But what we know is that our small business communities have been hurt. Folks like yourself who are in school have been hurt because you're now, separated from your friends and separated from the day-to-day of what public school life is. And also, renters have been hurt, homeowners have been hurt. I mean, we are all really hurting, and there may be some opportunities that can come out of this, but one of them is focusing on a way to make sure that our city doesn't dissolve, frankly, financially. Um, our small business community, particularly along downtown Pinole, Old Town Pinole, a little bit around where PVHS is, but also again all along San Pablo Avenue. We need to protect and thrive them because they're a part of the culture of Pinole, and we need to support them so that they can support our city. That's how, our city gets tax dollars mainly through property taxes and sales taxes, right? So when our businesses aren't going, our city can't give the services it needs to give, right? It can't maintain the open spaces and trees that it needs to maintain and pay our city staff to do those things. It's really important that we build a roadmap to COVID-19 recovery, but we work with the small businesses, young people again, and I'm going to be, reaching back out to you about this now that I know how important you both are. I knew it already, but it's just like so great. I'm now excited to know that you both are elected. But we need your leadership. We need the city's leadership. We need residents' leadership to ask, how do we move forward? Moving forward does not mean going back to where we were, to be clear. Everybody says, oh, we need to go back to normal. No, that wasn't normal for a lot of folks, right? And so what we know is that moving forward, we all need to create a roadmap together to identify what economic development in our city is. How do you both, as young people, see our city growing? What kind of businesses do you want to see in our town? We have a lot of fast food. That's great. What else? What else do you want to see? Do you want to see, green energy companies coming in here who give solar panels out to the houses here? Do you want to see clothing brands here? I mean, there's talk of Old Navies and things like that coming. Do you want small businesses? Do you want more mom and pop stores? Because we have so much of the Fitzgerald, right, going on there. That is the big stuff. But do you want more small stuff? Do you want something? Are you small business owners? Should we have a place where young people can sell their products if they want to, right? We have to build that roadmap together. And part of that building that roadmap includes building an economic development task force. The other part of that roadmap is ensuring that we aggressively pursue state, local, and federal grants that can bring money back to Pinole. These are here, they've been here. There's just something that is about political will to make sure we aggressively go out to those departments and agencies and say, hey, here's our people, this is what we bring. Here's how you can make your money big if you bring it to us. But also, my last point on the building the roadmap, building COVID-19 roadmap, recovery roadmap is also about ensuring that our tourism is bigger, right? And that folks know to come to Pinole for what is good about Pinole. That means Old Town, that means our Bayfront, right? That even means Fitzgerald and all the great places we have there. And then last year, I started a campaign called #VisitPinole, which you are more than welcome to check out and use as much as often. But really, it's just an online campaign to talk about the happenings, the great spaces of Pinole. It's on Instagram. We have a Facebook group page of about 300 plus members. And really that campaign is all about highlighting what's popping in Pinole, right? Like what is going on, the events, the happenings, how we can highlight them. And all you have to do is use the #VisitPinole. But what that does is it builds an online community for people here and for people outside of our city to say, here are the things that Pinole does amazing. Here's why Pinole is on the set. And here's why you should come to Pinole and spend your money so we can get more money for our own people, right? So that's a piece of it. So that's number one. And I know that's that was a long number one, but that is so important to me in terms of our future that I wanted to make sure you both know how much I wanted to spend time on that and how much I really do need, again, young people in that conversation, because it's so easy for young people to not be a part of that conversation for some reason, for many reasons, but it is very dire for us to have your voices here, and more than you two, but really folks who are under 18 who are talking about the Pinole and their future and coming back here, because I want you to go to college, but I also want you to come back here after college like myself. And technically, hopefully I'll still be on the council when you go to college, unless you do your right. Number two is about building a green economy and preserving our open spaces and parks. Many of you probably have experienced the skate park or Pinole Valley Park or Fernandez Park or Meadow Park where I'm living, or one of your local parks, Those are huge for Pinole. Our trails are huge for Pinole. Our waterfront is huge for Pinole. We are very much of the culture and characterization of our city is a green city, right? And so what we can do right now in this moment, we're talking about nationally, we can bring right here, right? You all, I hope you all have heard about the Green New Deal. Well, what is the Green New Deal? For folks who don't know, the Green New Deal is an opportunity for us to invest in building our infrastructure into a clean energy economy that essentially helps people with clean air, help with people with clean water, ensures that people have the environmental conditions that they deserve, but it also prioritizes our workers, our families, and the economy in doing so. And everything that we hear about from, great people like AOC, in my opinion, and, the Green New Deal and all that stuff at the national level, that's a great conversation. It's also very abstract, and we have to bring that conversation right here to the residents of Pinole. And the way we do that is by reminding folks that we are a green city, that we actually, our economy is built on the fact that we have clean parks, green spaces, waterfront. Even our buildings should be, and especially in 2020, we should be thinking about how to conserve energy for our buildings, particularly with the power shutoffs, right? I don't know how impacted you both were by the PSPS shutoffs by PG&E, but those are becoming part of the normal, right? And so part of that means that we have to electrify our city in so many ways. And our buildings have to be energy efficient, right? Transportation, I'm a proud public transportation writer. I use BART and WestCat as often as I can. And those have to be electrified. Your school buses, if you have school buses, have to be electrified, right? These are all things that include building a green economy, but not just that, right? It's about thinking that 70% of homeowners live in Pinole, right? We have 70% of homeowners and 30% of renters. When you are building a house now, you actually have to have and wire for solar energy. In order to do that, there are no places in Pinole that you can really go to. You have to go outside of Pinole and spend your money there and then bring them here to do that work. That doesn't make sense, right? It makes sense for us to, if we have homeowners, to use that money, right? And any money that consumers are going to purchase anyway to spend right here in our town to give back to their own homes. And so all of these are pillars, right, that I want to tackle in terms of building a green economy. But more importantly, to make sense of it all, it's about preserving our green public spaces, the library, the senior center, our parks, all of these true pieces of Pinole's community that are centered to our character. We have to preserve them. And that's a part of building a green economy. And then my last focus, frankly, is going to be about increasing community engagement. And again, I'm not shy on this, so I want you both, like Anita and Devin, I want you to hold me accountable and stay connected, because part of increasing community engagement means increasing young people's engagement. Pinole is one of the few cities in the area that doesn't have a youth commission. We did have one, but we don't have one now. And so how do we build back the power of young people in our city? That's the first step, is by creating an area, an arena that they can talk about their issues and recommend policies, ordinances, activities, programs to the city council, right? And as a city council member, I want to be the first person to bring that back and help you all have a space to be able to do that, right? I know you have leadership at PVHS. I think that's a great avenue also to also bring back concerns. And I hope that you both will do that before we get the youth commission started. I hope that you take that opportunity to come to me and say, hey, here are the things we're looking for. I would also love to come speak to your group as well and say, hey, here's what I'm working on, and how can we work together. Increasing engagement is truly about going to the people, not the people coming to you, which I think has been the model, unfortunately, for local governance in our town for quite some time. And I think we have to change that. We just can't, that is not sustainable, right, for local governance. But also, this goes back to my communication roots. I want, we just got Facebook, like during this campaign season. We just got Facebook, and that's awesome, but Facebook, the city of Pinole meeting, but we have to communicate better with our residents, right? We have to figure out a way to not just let things like COVID-19 happen and no communication from our city happens. or little communication from our city. We have to make people feel like our city government is working for them, even when the time happens when there's a global pandemic. Actually, especially when the time happens that happens, right? So these are the pillars of my campaign. I'm really excited about those three because, again, between building a roadmap for COVID-19 recovery, enhancing our parks and green economy, and also increasing community engagement, especially youth engagement, I find that those are three pillars that Pinole really needs right now, and I'm really excited to work on them.
Yeah. Speaking on community engagement, both me and Anita, we serve on Congressman Mike Thompson's Student Leadership Council. So we have like somewhat of an active voice there too, and regarding policy and like environmental concerns as well. So that's pretty cool that you want to see engagement from both us, and we could even relate to a congressman.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we need. Like that is a perfect avenue for you both to say, we are from Pinole, we live in Pinole, we go to school in Pinole, and we also want more things to come here. That means we want environmental clean energy dollars, tax credits, we want COVID-19 recovery assistance, right? Like all of those things you can start seeing on that council. Don't get me in trouble because I'll start telling you what to say, but you literally have the power to say what you want to do. But here's what I would push you to do is, since you're on that council, find ways to put us to work in the city of Pinole. You just told me you're on the council, so now I'm thinking, oh, great. What is Devin and Anita talking about on that council, and how can I, as a future council member, support what you want through that council, right? What your demands are, what your asks are, right? Because Congressmember Mike Thompson is a great Congress member, right? And he's a very powerful one, not just in California, but across the United States. And so you have a potential to really demand anything or ask for anything. I say demand because I'm a community organizer, but don't let me get you.
Yeah.
Get on that.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about like getting students and the youth and like engaged in, and like if they see something wrong, like actively working to like fix it in their community. So like, what's your advice for like a high schooler who really just is like, I'm not really happy with how things are going right now, but I don't know how to make a difference. I don't know how to get my like voice out there. What is your advice for them?
A couple things. Number one, my advice is to always start with writing a list. What do you write a list about? Well, the first thing is write a list to say, what do you want? Not what you don't want, but write a list to say 10 things that you do want. Just write, it could be on a piece of paper, on a piece of gum tag, post-it note, whatever. Write a list of 10 things you want. When you write that list of 10 things you want, try to use that list and think about the top 3 things you want, right? Once you write that top 10 things, write the top 3 things, right? When you write the top 3 things you want, imagine the stakeholder or the person you believe is responsible with the most power to change that, right? So I want every single person so one of the things on my list is I want every single person in Pinole to use reusable water bottles. So no one else uses plastic water bottles in their life in Pinole. This is my personal list. I'm just giving you an example. Now, that seems like every person's decision, right? Because everybody has a choice to use a plastic water bottle or a reusable water bottle, right? So when that happens, if that's my number one thing on my list, I have to think about, okay, so who has the power to give everybody a water bottle who's reusable? Well, this one comes from Stanford Business School, and this is free, right? But I went to a program about that, right? I've also gotten other water bottles at different places, right? I've gone to conferences where they give water bottles. I've been in schools where they give water bottles, right? Colleges, right? So sometimes I can say, okay, well, it's everybody's decision to make their reusable water bottle. Or sometimes there's people with power like Stanford Business School, maybe the dean or a teacher or the principal, right? Who can give everybody water bottles, and it won't require, right? But it could push everybody to say, well, I have a reusable water bottle, so let me try to get people to get one and give them the resource to do it, right? Without perjuring them or hurting them, and then ask them to use reusable water bottles. I know that's a very simple form of an ask. It also could be very powerful for everybody in Pinole to use water bottles. But I think for the person who is apathetic or disengaged, or person who sometimes just doesn't know how to get like the things that they want, they just see a lot of bad right now because there's a lot of bad happening. I think the best thing to do is write a list, identify people who you believe have the power to change what you want to see in in that list, right? And once you do that, I think the next step is to really take the step to say, I want to actualize this. Go to that person. It's going to take the courage. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be sometimes even um, sometimes people, especially right now, because we don't live in the most just country, people are going to say you're wrong. People are going to say you're not right. People are going to say you're just a kid. That's okay. Let them and keep pushing forward, because there are certain people like me who will uplift you if you come to me. There are certain people like me, when you run into them, who will make sure your voice isn't heard and who will be in alliance with you. Not a friend, not a partner. I say alliance because that means that we're working together for a similar or shared goal. And I want to really emphasize that because I think there's a lot of young people right now on the two edges, very active, or some people who are super apathetic. Our opportunity between us three even is for us to build that bridge.
Yeah. Well, it's like I know like in terms of like our voice, like I was working at the primary election as a poll worker in March, and like I got a lot of backlash from like voters like regarding like I didn't get the right ballot and stuff like that. So I feel what you're trying to convey to us.
Yeah, yeah. And here's the thing. It's, I don't know if y'all know this, the Stockton mayor or have heard about Michael Tubbs,
Mhm.
but he says a term that I love, and I'm not going to steal it from him, so I'm quoting, but he says, upset the setup. Some of these things are set up the way they're supposed to be set up. Some of these things are intentionally here to not be here for everybody, right? Some of these things have solutions that we know that have not been implemented because people just don't want them to, because that requires them to be honest about themselves, unfortunately, and it also requires them to be to share power, which some people just don't want to share power. I'm all into sharing power. I believe that there's enough there's no pie for power. Everybody can have power. We just have to feel uncomfortable at the beginning of sharing it, right? And there's times where I felt uncomfortable about sharing power with someone, and I'm like, oh, that's just my uncomfortability. And that means that says something more about me than it says about them. So I think that for us, we have to be comfortable with that uncomfortability, but we also have to challenge what people say. Really, we do. We have to challenge what is existence, because we have to upset the setup. We have to upset the set up things that are not meant, right? We in my opinion, Pinole is a very senior city, and I don't think it was set up for young people to be actively engaged. If it were, there would be a lot of different land use things going on. Our youth commission would be active, and we'd probably have a lot more programming and centering of young people in the city, and we don't, right? We have to upset that. And that's not upsetting to any of us on the line, but that may be upsetting to people. But we're going to bring them in when we upset them, because part of sharing power is also about even what people see as our enemies or people who are against us, bringing them in and showing them we're all on the same team, but we're not going to be hurt, and you can't hurt people. We all have to be a part of this solution.
Yeah, I agree, because sometimes it just, I feel like a lot of people don't understand that at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. So it's just a matter of someone to be like, bring us all together and say, yeah, you guys both want the same thing. You guys may be from different generations, but at the end of the day, we all want to live happy lives. So just getting people together under that one like umbrella, I feel like is really important.
It super is. It super is. Yes.
Mm. Devin?
Then on another note, like regarding advice, as we're like high school seniors, do you have any advice in terms of the college application process as you went through it at one point, right?
Yeah. So my brother is actually a high school senior right now too, and I'm trying to push him to. I wish he was on this call with us because he'd probably be inspired. Maybe not. He's not that inspired by me. But but he's a high school senior too, and honestly, I just tell him to um, find the things that you like. I mean, there's a thing called Strengths Finder that I really love, and it's basically about like finding 5 core strengths of yours that you did like you can use in your college applications or in your work experience or in your resume and things like that. I know this time right now is not the best time to apply to colleges because there's just so much going on. But that doesn't mean that you are both not strong and seniors are you don't have strengths that are still in you innately, right? Everything can go on in the world and you still have um, the privilege of strength, right? Or the privilege of identifying things in your own core competencies that will brighten up, right? And so this is just a time, this is just a period. Um, when you're applying, I hope that you single out the fact that you are excellent in many ways, right? It took great initiative for you to email me and say, I want to talk to you about your issues and what matters to you as a city council candidate. It takes even more courage to actually ask those questions and to follow through, right? It takes a lot of courage to tell other people that this is what happened today, right? And so I think for you, for as seniors, I think the biggest advice I would give you is just be bold, be bold, and know your strengths and own them. Between those two, I believe that you two specifically, and now I'm just talking to you two will certainly grow and develop because you have so much to learn. We, all three of us, have a lot to learn more about, but being bold allows you to, even in those mistakes that you'll make one day, those failures that you have, to still push through and to realize that no one person will ever hold you back from what you want. And that's the biggest advice, is just to be bold and own your own strengths, because you will prosper. All these seniors will prosper.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
great.
yeah, yeah, like in writing our PIQ. So I work with like UC Berkeley students, or like they mentor me and I mentee other students through the college application process. And we're taught to be like own up to our vulnerability at one point and just like discuss like how that has shaped us. So I think that's a big part too as well.
Absolutely. That's exact. I mean, owning up to your vulnerability is owning up to your strengths, right? Because everyone has a vulnerability. It just means pushing through it. So that's all. That is perfect advice. That's great advice. And I'm glad you're also mentoring people as well. I didn't say that, but that's a huge thing, is that people who are young don't think we can mentor younger folks. We totally can. We don't have all the answers, but we totally can help somebody get to UC Berkeley, or even through to high school, right? Some folks struggle to get to high school. It's a privilege to go to high school and to graduate with a diploma still. So keep mentoring. That's also a great piece of advice for high school seniors. Keep mentoring.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we are almost out of time, but like, what is just like one last thing that you want to say to all the PV kids and all the people who are part of the Pinole community who will be looking at the article that we write or watching this video? Like, what would you like them to know?
Oh my gosh, one thing, that's such a big one thing. I really just want, I mean, just get activated, get activated, get activated. I mean, it it is a lot going on right now, and I feel it, and I'm at the forefront of politics, so I know that, it may seem like, oh, Devin, you are in this, you're going to be fine. All of us, this is a different time for all of us, and every single one, your parents, our aunts, my uncles, my kids, I mean, I don't have kids, but my nieces and nephews, like everybody is dealing with something. But don't sit back and let this opportunity not be your opportunity, because even with conflict comes great opportunity. I say that again, like even with conflict comes great opportunity for growth. And if you get activated right here, right now, and there are people like myself who are here to support you, you will prosper. In that high school students, more than anything, you see it on the front lines of the climate change movement, right? And the climate crisis, climate movement, right? If you get active right now, you will truly transform this country in the way we know it. It's no other time. I mean, there's so many adults who have questions. They don't know what they're talking about. You do. You know exactly what you want out of this country. You know exactly what you want out of Pinole. You know exactly what you want out of Pinole. Get activated and come reach out to me as your council member to do that, because I am, as you can tell, very passionate about centering young people's voices, about centering high school voices in my movement for city council. But I'm also very passionate as a council member about ensuring that local government is responsive to the needs of young people. So get activated, please. There's a whole song called Activated. Get activated. All right, go do it, please.
Well, thank you so much for your time and so much for answering our questions. And this was just a really cool experience. I just want to say that. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. And I would love to do it again, even if it's not for a paper and it's just us three. Honestly, you two, thank you for reaching out. First and foremost, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I am so excited that you have one more semester, right, as president and ASB president, which is great. That's a whole year basically for me. That's going to be my first year. So I would love to do this with you again. If you have other young people who would love to do it with us, like, let's do it. I know you're part of Congressman Mike Thompson's High School Leadership Council. Well, let's kind of bring something like that to Pinole, with all Pinole people. So it's not, I'm sure you have people from Vallejo, Napa maybe on that council. Well, we need something just like that here in Pinole, because we don't have it outside of your leadership class. And I don't think right now there's that bridge between our local government and your leadership class, but I want to have that bridge, because I do believe that when you both go to Harvard or Princeton or UC Berkeley or UCLA, if you want to, let me know, because I got you. But like, when you go to those schools, you're going to be excellent, because I already feel it in how you've interviewed me, but I want you all to possibly come back to Pinole. And like I said, I may be on the city council still when you're on Pinole, and you may be taking my seat. So that's going to be okay, because again, that means sharing power. That means that we did something right. We're creating space for each other. So if we can do this again, please let me know. I'm always available via email. I think you have my phone number too. So just let me know, stay in contact. But I just want to thank you both again for this opportunity. And I'd love to take a picture if I can. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, let me do this first. All right, let me know when you're ready. All right, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you both so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, it was a great experience. And we'll definitely try to set this thing up with some more students at Pinole Valley High School, because I feel like this would be a great thing for everybody to really just like talk and just be
And I
together.
want to listen, and again, I want to get activated. I want to get folks excited and moving on something. I'm sure there's so much that you all have passions for. So let's do it again.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.